Okay, so now I drew this slightly unsymmetrical, complicated shape with the pencil tool, and it smoothed it out for me, and I was able to manipulate anchors, but I didn't like the 1 foot. So now I'm going to use what I can in Illustrator to cut this foot out, flip it over to here. So how do you do something like that? Well, I know I want this. So that's why layers are so important organizationally. If I know I want something, then I should lock it, right? And then build something else. But before I lock it, I'm going to select it and copy it, Command-C. And then I lock, and I'll make a new layer, which will now be kind of a purplish blue, and I'll say Edit, Paste in Place, and now I have a purplish blue one. How do I cut out just the foot and flip it? This is the first time, and this is why you use it. I'm going to use the Eraser tool, which I need to find. Where are you, Eraser? Here you are. All right, so the Eraser tool is just like the pencil tool. You can double click on it, you can set the size, you can set its pressure sensitivity, but it gets rid of anchor points and of paths. It doesn't add anything. So I'm just going to use it to very simply cut, like that. Actually, maybe a little higher. And maybe I'll make this a different color so you can see it cleanly. So now, because I cut, if I make all of this like a pink color again, you can see that it's separated it as a separate path. So now I can just select this path above and delete it. So now I have the foot that I can use. So now I select the foot, and then the same thing, I say Object, Transform, Reflect at 90 degrees. Okay. And I hold down Shift as I move it. You have to start moving it and then hold down Shift. And then I can kind of place it where I want, but it's not quite right because I don't want it to line up with the foot. So then I'm going to shrink it a little bit because I don't need it to be exactly symmetrical. I just need it to feel better than what I was able to trace originally. And that looks pretty good because I want everything to work smoothly. Okay, now I'm going to make it black. Well, actually, no, I won't make it black just so you can see it. I can make it black and then no one would know that this shape was made of 2 cutouts, but it's not ideal because I might want to add a stroke or an outline to my bird later on. And if I leave them as 2 separate shapes, this will be part of the outline, right? So I'm going to merge them. So how do I do that? I hold down Shift, I select both, but I now have to unlock it, both of those, even though they're in different layers, and I use Pathfinder to merge them. It will make them all pink. I turn them all back to black. There we are. Now I have one contained shape, and it's all in a new layer now, and now I have this empty layer 3 that I can play with on top. Oh, it's so hard to get things placed. All right, so now I've got the elements. Get rid of my sketch. I have my background. I have my eagle. I have, or my Nico. Now, how do I want my bird to stand out on this background? Well, I can give him a stroke. Intentionally, a severe one. So I'm going to double click and I'm going to say for the stroke color, make it white. Because I'm making a black and white logo, right? And then I can increase the size of it. So that really stands out. And it kind of looks like a tiger, just a little bit. I'll need the eyes, all that stuff, but let's say it's getting there. Okay, so I'm going to save that for now. I can always change that stroke size because I don't like that little floating piece of black there. And now we go back to the easier one. Okay, so I brought these in. I've live traced them. Let's see what my layers look like. Because it was live traced, live tracing always comes in as fills with no strokes. So all of these are just a solid black cutout shape. What's nice about that is it's pretty easy to edit with the pencil tool, with the smooth tool. So if I want this to look less kind of kinky, then I can smooth it out. But I kind of like that because it complements the chevron strong kink. But if I want to redraw, smooth this out, I can use the pencil tool. Draw through an anchor, in through an anchor, and it will redraw it. Show you how I could smooth that out. Yeah, I think I like it better with the strangeness to it. There are some problems with my shape tools, right? So now I can fix those with vector tools. Can round things out, make them feel more gestural, more organic, more pointed if I need to. So I love the pencil tool, like magic scissors. And like I said, Illustrator is terrible for perfectionists because there's just so much you can do, so much you can really tighten up and fix. And if you're getting paid $100,000 for a company to create a logo over 15 months, it's worth doing that. But we don't get that long. So we just try to make it look pretty good for our portfolios. And if we fall in love with it, we go in and we work with it more. And we just keep tightening it up. Okay, so I wanted to come back to this one to show you then how you save your finished logo and how you can add color, because you have two ways you can add color. Nothing is simple with this project. It's all new. I want to show you how you can add color in Photoshop using layer styles, and I also want to show you how you can add color in Illustrator. Okay, but the big benefit of the vector is that everything is nice and sharp and clean, and we want to keep it that way. But you can't upload a vector file to PhotoBucket or to a website. You have to rasterize it first. There you go. All right. So this is my finished black and white logo. And notice it has no white whatsoever. That is helpful for coloring in Photoshop. How do I save it? Well, I'm going to save it as my AI file. Digital, I have my name, Carl, Digital Art Assignment 6, AI. I'm going to save it to the desktop. Use all the defaults. Now I'm going to save it again. And this time I'm saving it as a versatile file format that's still a vector. So it is a vector file format that can be opened by other programs. And that is an EPS file. And that to me is the most useful vector file format. And then use all the defaults, save it to the desktop, and make sure you have transparent checked. It's one of the defaults, so it doesn't fill in the empty space. Okay, now I can minimize Illustrator. I'm done with it for now, because now I want to turn in my black and white. So what do I do? Well, this is what I do not do. I do not right-click and open this in Photoshop, because if you open a vector file in Photoshop, watch what will happen once Photoshop opens. It will force you to rasterize it. It will say, how big do you want it to be? How many pixels? And that doesn't sound bad, but you don't need to have to make that decision, right? So before it can open, if you open it that way, it will force you to pick a size and a resolution. So I don't want to do that. Instead, I want to open Photoshop on its own, and I want to say File New, and I want to call it Carl Assignment 6 Black and White Logo. Okay, and then the size, I want it to be 9 by 12 inches. I want it to be 350 pixels per inch. Or better yet, because our mats are going to have a window of 8 by 10, let's make it 8 by 10 inches by 350 pixels per inch. The background content's white, RGB color. Okay. So this is exactly what you'll see within your matted print. And now we just have to place our logo onto that. I cannot do that with an AI file, but I can do that with an EPS. An EPS becomes a beautiful, smart object when I drag and drop it in. And there I go. It looks pretty good there. If I want to, I can position it. I can hold down Shift and Option. I can make it bigger, smaller. I can tilt it. I can play with it. But that looks pretty decent. I can shift it over to one side or the other for visual weighting, and then hit Return. But notice it is a smart object, just like a lot of our compositing things were when we brought them in that way, which means I cannot accidentally mess it up. And it means if I ever need to enlarge it, it will perfectly scale up to whatever new resolution I pick. So even though this is now rasterized, it is not really rasterized. It's always going to refer back to that EPS file and make it as clean as possible no matter what resolution I choose. So this is a better way to go, because I can print this 8 by 10, I can print it the size of a billboard, and it will still be perfectly clean. Okay, now why did I bring it into Photoshop? Well, because now I can turn off the background and save it as an online file format, and I don't want the white to be part of it. I just want it to be a black cutout. So what file format do I save? PNG. PNG is an online compressed format, but it supports transparency. So I say save to the desktop. That is what, here it is, that is what I can put up to PhotoBucket. And it will show the logos or the background of the website behind it. But by bringing it into Photoshop, I can also play with it now. And as a vector, a smart layer, oh, why does it not look like a smart layer anymore? Somehow I rasterize it. I clicked something wrong. I said okay, so I want to say cancel. All right, cancel. So now it's a smart layer. I can take advantage of the things I can do to smart layers. I can't paint it, I can't change it, but I can add layer styles to it, which means I can give it a stroke. Right? It means, and I might want to do like a white outline stroke. It means I can give it a drop shadow behind it. And I can see, well, how would that look like on white? Right? This is still just a black and white logo. Except I think my drop shadow is a little colored. Yeah. Let me just change that to being black. So that's a pretty little spiffy black and white cutout logo, right? And you might like that as a printout more than otherwise. I can add other things. I can add a gradient overlay, as long as I keep it black and white. I can change the angle of it. I can even give it a slight texture. This is very subtle, but it will show up in your print. All because it's a vector file, it's all going to be perfectly clean at whatever resolution I choose. And because you are all required to print either your black and white or your colored logo, you want to play with it, make it the most interesting you can that fits for your idea. So I can do lots of things. I can give it a satin kind of sheen. I can give it an inner glow, an outer glow, just so many things. It doesn't make sense to go overboard, but these are the options you have. Yeah, I kind of like the inner glow. All right, so let me save that as my PSD black and white logo, because I can turn any of those settings off at any time. But if I want to save it as a PNG, I turn off the background.